mark of the beast has been explained as many things. It was the COVID vaccine. It was Social Security, by the way. They thought that Social Security was the mark of the beast. Cell phones at one point were
5G.
Yeah, 5G. Well, yeah. There's been a lot of things, and people have these big conspiracy theories and all that, but it's really not that complicated. And I'll do a quick explanation of scripture where it comes from. So the mark of the beast comes from Revelation chapter 13. And we'll talk about what Revelation is, because part of most people's misunderstanding of what it is because they don't understand how to read the Bible. And specifically, they don't know how to separate different genres of scripture and how to interpret those. So Revelation is apocalyptic literature. We'll talk more about that a different day. But the short version is you went to New York, you're at Broadway, while you're watching The Lion King, all right? You're watching this whole production. You're sitting in the suit, you sit in the seat, you're bawling your eyes out. It's the Magda! Like it's a whole thing. And you're watching this whole production, and it's amazing. But all the while, there's something going on behind the scenes. You got set pieces are changing, people are changing costumes, lights, audio. There's a bunch of stuff you don't even see that's going on that's making the whole production, going on all at the same time to put it all together in one big masterpiece. Apocalyptic literature is the behind the scenes of Earth. So it is the heavens version of what's going on in Earth. It is pulling open the curtains and revealing, where apocalypse comes from is to reveal. And so it is revealing what is going on in heaven. Heaven is the dwelling place of God and all spiritual beings, angels and otherwise. And so, we'll talk more about this later, but in Revelation chapter 13, it talks about how there's this beast who is the spiritual version of the Antichrist. And he goes in and he says, here it is. So in verse 6, with the miracles and all the miracles the beast was allowed to perform on behalf of the first beast and deceived all the people who belong into this world. He ordered the people to make a great statue of the first beast who was fatally wounded and then came back to life. He was then permitted to give life to the statue so that it could speak. Then the statue of the beast commanded that everyone refusing to worship it must die. He required everyone, small and great, rich and poor, free and slave, to be given a mark on the right hand or on the forehead. And there's no one could buy or sell anything without the mark, which was either the name of the beast or the number representing its name. Wisdom is needed here. Let the one who has understanding solve the meaning of the number of the beast, for it is a human number, and its number is 666. There's a lot we could talk about that, but the absolute most important thing that is most relevant for us today is found in this key phrase right here, this reference where it says the mark is supposed to be put on their right hand or their forehead. The Bible is the most self-referencing book of all time. It references itself all the time, and that is how all the many different authors have used, and God has inspired these writers to include these references to kind of create ancient versions of hyperlinks. Like when you're on a website and it's like highlighted and you click on it and it takes you to another website, that's the ancient worldview version of this. So the right hand and the forehead is only seen in one, from what I remember, and someone correct me if I'm wrong in the comments, but I've read the Bible cover to cover. I don't even know how many times now, but I don't remember of another place where it is referenced other than Deuteronomy chapter 6. Deuteronomy chapter 6, starting in verse 4, which is to our Jewish friends, is called Shema, or at least part of Shema. And it says, "Listen, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you must love the Lord your God with all of your heart, all of your soul, all of your strength. And you must commit yourselves wholeheartedly to these commands that I am giving you today." Which commands? To love God with all your heart, with all your soul, and all your strength. Repeat them again and again to your children. What are you repeating to your children again and again? Love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And talk about them when you are at home or when you are on the road, when you're going to bed or when you're getting up. Verse 8, tie them on your hands and wear them on your foreheads as reminders. Hand and wrist would be the same word. The difference is Greek and Hebrew. And so that is the only other place that we've seen this in scripture. What are you tying on your hand or your wrist? And what are you wearing on your forehead as a reminder? A reminder to do what? To love the Lord your God with all your heart, soul, and strength. Now, where have we also heard this uttered by someone else before? Jesus. Jesus was asked this in the Gospels. You can find it in the book of Matthew. You can find it in the book of Luke. And I believe also in Mark as well. And I think John as well. Yeah. Mm-hmm. I think pretty sure it's in every single one of them. And at some point, Jesus is asked this hot topic, but hot issue button of the day. Like it was the big heated debate among religious leaders that day, from what I ever understand, was what is the most important thing in the Bible? Mm-hmm. You know, there's one thing. You just choose one thing and that's it. What are you choosing? They asked Jesus this question. He gives a very interesting answer because he starts with the thing that they expect, which would they all said would have been Shema. Love God with all your heart, soul, and strength, because they had to pray it 3 times a day. Now they had a longer version in Shema. There's incorporation of a bunch of different parts of scripture, but that is the central piece of it. That is the core, the beginning. It is the most important part. And they would pray it 3 times a day, and 3 or 2. Yeah. They would pray it, at least morning and night. But then he does something they don't expect, because then he says the second is equally as important. Now, the way that he communicates that back then, he's not actually saying that there's a first greatest commandment and a second greatest commandment. The way he's communicating it is there is one greatest commandment, and it is love God, all your heart, soul, and strength, and love your neighbor as yourself. And he combines these as the singular and greatest commandment. And he is Jesus, the anointed one, or is the word that we read in the Bible, Christ. Christ means anointed one. So going back to the mark of the beast, what is the mark of the beast? To bring it all to a conclusion. If the greatest commandment, to which they were to write on their hands and their foreheads, as reminders, love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. The mark of the beast, which is a lack of better words, the gospel of the Antichrist. If he's the Antichrist, the anti-anointed one, the anti-Jesus, and Jesus says the greatest commandment is to love God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength, then what is the anti-greatest commandment?
Tell us, Caleb.
To hate God. Thank you. I'll tell you. Let me tell you, church. It is to hate God with all your heart, soul, and strength. And how do you do that? By hating your neighbor.